Today I'm going to talk about how we made automatically a linguistic summary of energy consumption data. And the structure of the talk will be, at the beginning I will tell a little bit about the problem that we were faced with, then how we made some basic terminology, basic descriptions, basic linguistic labels, then how we made a statistical summary of these basic linguistic labels or basic parts, then some new kinds of descriptions, comparative linguistic labels. After that we go to a summary of a database of all kinds of sentences, and after that I'm introducing some relevance measure to make some selection of sentences, and later an example of output. Well, first let's talk about what the problem was. Well, S20-1.avi, a big energy company, an energy provider here in Asturias, which has a big part of the market, 94%, has installed in about 35 households energy meters, which every 15 minutes record how much energy has been consumed in this house. And then you get, well, things like this. This is 4 days, I think, 3 or 4 days of data. And typically you see a base consumption, which is standard consumption in a house of electric equipment, which is all the time on. You can think of a refrigerator or things like that. And then you see a lot of spikes or bursts at certain points, usually during the morning when people wake up and turn on things. Also in the night when they start to watch TV or other things. And well, CwW had this data and they wanted to do something with it. They wanted to provide it to the clients. Every 2 months they sent to the clients an invoice stating their energy consumption and what they are doing. And they wanted to use this data also in these invoices that they sent to the clients. So they were thinking about how were they going to present this to the clients. There's also one other thing here also involved, which is there are, for CwW, they have these plants providing energy, and they usually have a lot of spikes corresponding with all the households which are watching TV or doing their things, and it puts a pressure on their capacity. So they would like that people would spread out their energy consumption towards other times of the day. That's better for them. Then they can have more households for the same capacity. So they have a variable pricing scheme. Well, actually in this work we are only summarizing the data, but that's also one of the reasons behind why they have installed these measurement devices in these houses. Okay. So what did they do with the data? They presented the data to the households in these types of reloj energético, electric clocks, 24 hours, and they show the media the average energy consumption every hour. As you can also see, there are different blocks. Block A, block B. It's a little bit fuzzy, you cannot see it. Block C and block D. They correspond with block A, for example, is really in the morning. Block B is really, well, in the afternoon, from 12 till 7, something like that. And they noticed also when they also use this in their invoice that they sent to the clients in a pilot study that they did. But they noticed that people did not understand anything of this. They could not interpret it really. So they also gave an extra description with it. For example, with block A, which we saw there. At the start of 5 o'clock in the morning, the consumption, the half-hourly consumption begins to rise and reaches its maximum in the morning during 8 and 9 o'clock in the day. They made these kinds of descriptions, but they never made it automatically. This is done by some kind of expert which has made these descriptions. And well, the effect of all this was that it was too complex, too much detail, and the consumers did not understand. So, the question we got was, how can we make a more simple summary that the average household can understand and also interpret? Okay. That's what we started. Now, the first step that we wanted to do was we needed to make clear in what terms are we going to explain this data to the clients, to the households. So we thought that it would be, we decided that it was most useful to describe the data in terms of days, or in terms of during the nights your consumption is high, or during the middays your consumption is low, or you have a very high consumption in the afternoons, so words like that, fuzzy words. That's how we came up with our basic labeling, basic terminology. This is how we defined the mornings, middays, afternoons, evenings, and nights. As you can see also, so we have the data, we got the data into days, and then we put this labeling over the days. As you can also see, a day does not run from, as usually is the case, from 12 until 12, but a day runs from 4 o'clock in the night until 4 o'clock in the night. And why is that the case? Because in the data which we had, which is also here, there is a flat consumption line, usually around 4 o'clock, and it's in all of the households that we had and all the data that we had, they had a flat consumption around there, which we assume that they are just nicely sleeping. That's why we chose that as the breaking point. And the reason is also that we want this terminology, this description, this will be the basis for the description that we use later in the invoices, needs to match also with the persons that are reading it. So when you are talking about the night, then you mean the time before that person went to sleep, and that day starts when they wake up. So that's why we chose this division. Okay, this is the basic terminology that we have. Basic label. Now, we made a statistical summarizer of these different parts of the day. You have the original signal, you have a fuzzy interval, you do them times each other. Then you have, let's do the form. The original signal, say, times the fuzzy interval, ooey, and then you have a weighted average of that, and then you have an average of a fuzzy interval. This is also a weighted average because it could be that the interval of midday could be smaller or bigger, or maybe you want to change the slopes or whatever, but you want to have an average which is comparable over all these intervals. That's why we chose this form. If I'm jumping or going too fast or explaining things not very clear, just let me know. And maybe I will explain it. Okay. So this is a basic statistical summary of a plot. Now, with these statistical summaries of a part, we decided we wanted to make the summary, which in the end will be provided to the households, will contain some sentences. And we had in mind two different types of sentences to be used in these summaries. A first type of summary could, or a first type of description could be, for example, a comparison between a morning and an afternoon, which is the first type, a comparison between two parts of a day. During the morning or during the night, then